Hello everyone, welcome to my channel where it's all about creating the life you're here for and thrive in life and business. And today I have a very interesting topic to speak about and an expert in this field with me. Welcome Cassandra Michael from Greece, and I'm happy to have you here.
Hi Sylvia, thank you so much for inviting me. I'm really looking forward to our talk.
Thank you for being here. Cassandra Michael is a holistic trauma and relationship coach, and she will take us through how relationships can really change our lives. In my own personal development story, this has been a huge game changer when I came around the work of healing your inner child, your self-worth, and looking into these topics in order to grow. I want to start with a quote by Tony Robbins, which is, "The quality of your life is determined by the quality of your relationships." And I'm super happy to have Cassandra here. Cassandra, please introduce yourself a little bit and what you do.
Okay, sure. So yeah, as you said, I'm a holistic trauma and relationship coach. So I help my clients break free from unhealthy relationship patterns by healing childhood wounds, rewiring limiting beliefs, reconnecting and healing their inner child, and also reconnecting with their authenticity and their true essence. And so I like to visualize it as like we have sometimes this dark cloud above us, and that dark cloud is filled with conditioning, with limiting beliefs, with traumas, with all those things that are keeping us small and maybe staying in the way or blocking us from having the life and the relationships that we desire. And so I help my clients remove that dark cloud so that they can see clearly again, so that the light can come in and they can attract and create the relationships that they desire.
Beautiful. And you already mentioned limiting beliefs. And I know that so many people out there are working on their beliefs, are working hard on themselves to perform better. And they might have this idea, okay, if I perform better, I can create my best life. But they might still avoid that relationships are such a big part of it. And how can I actually really change my beliefs? Where do I have to go to change a belief? Maybe you can elaborate a little bit on that topic.
Yeah, sure. So I can tell you the way I approach it in my practice. So our beliefs are usually formed by certain traumatic experiences growing up. And not only traumatic, it comes from our childhoods, culture, social conditioning. So it's the environment with which we grew up in will inform the beliefs that we have moving forward. And especially when we're looking at limiting beliefs, usually those are connected to traumatic experiences or some challenging times that we went through as children. And when we go through trauma, then we might internalize certain things about ourselves, the world, and relationships that aren't necessarily true. Right. So let's say, for example, our parents weren't that present, or we felt quite alone or neglected growing up. Then we may have internalized the belief that says something like, I'm not good enough, or I will be abandoned, or I'm not worthy of love. Right. So it's different experiences that we've been through. And I also want to really highlight here that it's not necessarily the big T traumas that people talk about, like rape or abuse or, these really big events. But a trauma is defined by our inability to, let's say, cope with a certain situation. So if we're going through something and at that time we don't have the tools or the resources to process what's going on, and we don't have the coping strategies or mechanisms, then that's going to be traumatic for us and our nervous system. So something can be considered traumatic as, let's say, as a child, you're waiting for your parents to pick you up from primary school and they're late. That could be a traumatic event. Or you're speaking to your mother and you're really sad and she invalidates your feelings. That could be a trauma. So I just want everybody to know that we all have been through certain traumatic events, big or small, and those have shaped the way that we view the world and relationships and ourselves. So for me, it's about looking at those traumas and starting to heal those so that you can create a blank slate and then go on to rewire the belief. So let's say, for example, you have a belief that says, I have to perform for love, or I have to earn love, as you
So
mentioned.
common.
Then the way I work with my clients is that we will see where this belief is stored in the body. So if you literally say the limiting belief you have out loud, you'll probably feel your body reacting in a certain way. Maybe you'll feel contractions, a tingling feeling, some anxiety. And so I have quite a somatic approach. I'll ask my clients to see, like, where do they feel that the belief is actually sitting within their bodies. And then I do a type of regression where we will find the traumatic event that created that limiting belief. Usually a memory will pop up from their childhood, and a memory that still creates a strong emotional reaction within their bodies. And then I use different techniques. One is tapping, otherwise called EFT, to release the trauma from the body. So we're literally tapping on different parts of the body and releasing the trauma that is lodged within our systems. And then I weave in inner child work, some visualizations, even some shamanic energy work. It depends on the client. And so we use different modalities to clear that trauma, create a blank slate, and then go on to rewiring the new empowering belief. To do that, the one piece, like I said, is the trauma healing. And then the other piece is about embodying the new belief. So if you truly believe that you are worthy, for example, of love, regardless of what you do, how would you show up differently in the world? And if there's not that embodied experience of the new belief, then it's very hard to actually internalize it. So for me, it takes the deep trauma work, but also then putting it into practice and showing up in the world in that new empowered way.
Super. Yeah, I really like that. Also, what you said about how would a person show up who truly believes that he or she is worthy of love, and how would they show up? What is the difference when you work with the people, like before and after? And were there before the ideas they came to you with actually what turned out to be the problem, or did you end up in a completely different area to clear the trauma?
So what is your question exactly? If they came to you with one thing and they ended up
like
somewhere else?
The reason why people are coming to you, is this usually also the actual problem, or is there's often like a completely different story showing up, an unexpected path you take to clear out the trauma?
Well, people will traditionally come to me because they want to see a certain change in their life. So maybe they're stuck in unhealthy relationship patterns. They attract emotionally unavailable partners, narcissistic partners, or they have an inability to open up and give and receive love. Maybe they're just blocked emotionally. And so they'll come to me and be like, hey, I really want to break this pattern. I want to call in a beautiful relationship. And so that's the end goal. But in order to get there, obviously we go back and we look into childhood dynamics and traumas and the beliefs that I mentioned in order to clear those and give them the result that they want. So I guess they come to me knowing their end goal, but the way to get there requires some detective work, and it usually requires going deeper and unraveling conditioning, beliefs, traumas, but it can be a very fast process as well. It doesn't have to take years. So within just one session, one 90-minute session, for example, that could be enough time for me to release, let's say, and process one traumatic event completely. And that, let's say, process can have a domino effect. So it's not that you have to revisit all the traumas that you've experienced in your life in order to see a change. But it can be that if you find the root, which is maybe one or two events, and you really tackle those, then that creates almost like a domino or ripple effect and will enable you to achieve the healing that you want to.
Absolutely. I experienced that also in my own life. And it is so fascinating when that happens, because maybe you've been struggling for years and years with this one pattern, and then you dive into it and you find out that something completely different was underneath, and you've been carrying that with you for so long, and then it can be released. And I like what you said about that you incorporate the body, work with the nervous system, embodying, rewiring the body, the mind, the beliefs to have a fresh start here. How important is the body, and can we just do it with our mind, or how are you dealing with that?
I think the body is very important. And, especially if, people listening here, maybe they're suffering from chronic anxiety, they're feeling very stressed in their daily lives. That, for example, is a very common, let's say, manifestation of trapped trauma that's in the system. And if you don't incorporate your body and learn certain techniques to release that, then it's really hard to just release the anxiety using cognitive modalities like cognitive behavioral therapy, for example. That is a good way to minimize anxiety, but you're not getting rid of the root cause, right? So I think a somatic approach is very important when doing this work. And that's another reason why traditional talk therapy is not very effective.
Yes.
Because you might go and you're talking and talking about your problem, and maybe you create a certain level of awareness, which is good. But oftentimes the therapist won't give you tools that you can use. You're like, okay, I have all this awareness. Now what? I'm still anxious. I can see it. I know why it's there, but what do I do? And often the therapist won't give them tools to self-soothe, to self-regulate, or they won't take them through a process to actually address the root cause of the anxiety so that they can heal on a deeper level. So to recap, somatic work, I think, is 100% necessary for this type of personal development work.
The body is the gateway in a way, right? I want to speak with you also about the self-worth. I guess so many people, especially women, are struggling with this feeling of I'm not good enough, or feel like an imposter, or they feel flawed. Where is this coming from, and how is this related to this whole topic of love and relationships?
So again, it all stems from childhood, right? And so something happened, or multiple events happened growing up, where we made the conclusion that we were not good enough. This might look like having really strict parents with super high expectations that were like, oh, you have to get, the best grades. Maybe there's a lot of comparison going on at home. And so the child made the conclusion that it had to perform for love or be a certain way in order to receive love. And then that will create a belief inside of you that I'm not worthy the way I am. I have to be all these things in order to receive love and acceptance, right? So that's super common. Or maybe there was physical or emotional abuse going on at home, or neglect. So, if our parents abandon us or they're just not present, as children, we will feel very alone and think like, okay, did I do something wrong? Am I not worthy of receiving my parents' love? Is that why they're not around? Or if there's physical abuse, again, we will internalize that we're faulty in some way if our caregivers who we turn to for safety actually become a source of danger. You can imagine how detrimental that is on the psyche. And it's going through these different experiences, again, these traumatic events, and the conclusions that we make about ourselves. And often this is connected to a sense of, or lack thereof, of self-worth, right? That we're not good enough.
Yeah, so from what I hear, it's really about revealing also all these stories that are underneath, like really the beliefs that construct our world. And what I notice is that we often rationalize things, or we often also think like, oh, I didn't have a particularly bad upbringing, so everything is fine. We don't really look into these things. But how we made sense of the world as a child is in many ways still how we make sense of the world as an adult, and we don't even notice that, right? How can we access our inner child? And maybe I'll just have this intuition now. I don't know if you can do with us something at the end, or like some little exercise to get a taste of how can we get in touch with our inner child.
Yeah, so I'll explain a little bit when our inner child normally comes out to play. Well, like when the inner child surfaces and we're like, okay, it makes its presence really apparent. So that can often happen when we feel triggered. So when we're pushed into like a fight or flight response, we have a strong emotional reaction to something, that's normally the inner child that is actually reacting. So let's say, for example, for those watching who have an anxious attachment style, they probably know that, you know, if a new love interest or a friend or someone does not get back to their text message, or maybe disappears for a couple of days, that can create a lot of anxiety. And so what that anxiety is, it's our inner child who's afraid of abandonment and rejection. And so it's realizing that underneath that trigger, it's almost like our inner child is knocking on the door and trying to get our attention. So what I suggest there is literally just putting your hand on your heart and visualizing your younger self. You can have a photo of when you were maybe 6 or 7 years old, or just closing your eyes and visualizing your younger self, and do what is called reparenting. So you start speaking to your inner child, and you can say something like, hey, Cass, it's okay. No one's going to abandon you. I'm here for you. Just because so-and-so did not respond, it doesn't mean anything about you or your self-worth. You're worthy, you're more than enough, and I'm here for you always. Wow. And you'll be surprised how powerful that small exercise is, just to speak to your inner child as you would to a child that you love dearly, and understanding the root of the trigger, that it's, you know, this fear of abandonment. And just reassuring your inner child that you're here and no one is gonna abandon him or her.
Yeah, so powerful. How often do you think people should do that, and how long is a process to really change your beliefs? And what would you say there? How long are you also working with people in general to see a progress? And if people apply, for example, such an exercise as this one, how often do they need to do it before they see a result or before they see a major change?
So the technique that I mentioned, that's just a self-soothing technique, right? And it does contribute to inner child healing. But I would say whenever they feel triggered or something like this comes up, they can just sit for a couple of minutes and do that, and they'll see the difference. And it's just an ongoing practice, right? It's like going to the gym. If you want to stay fit, you probably have to go to the gym at least 3-4 times a week. So it's the same with our mental health. If we want to start like really rewiring our nervous system, well, you have to practice this on an ongoing basis. It's not that you do it once or twice and then you're fine. But what happens is the compounded effect. So if you continuously do that, or if you, let's say, continuously practice being present and sitting with your emotions and processing them, you're rewiring neural pathways, and then it just becomes easier. So you'll start getting less triggered, or it will be much faster for you to return to baseline levels. So I'd say it's on a personal level, it's just an ongoing journey, right? And it just gets easier the more you do it. Now, regarding the way I work with my clients, so right now I have a one-to-one option, and that's 4 months. And that's normally enough time for me to really go deep and help my clients reach their goals. So I work 4 to 6 months, but my default's 4. And then we do a little evaluation with the clients, and we might continue for another month or 2. But I've never needed more than 6 months to get them where they want to be. Because my approach is very targeted and tailored to their needs. I don't beat around the bush. I won't ask you how your day was. We will go like straight into, you know, the root cause, and we'll tackle that. And I have a lot of like, let's say, I have a hands-on approach. So I'll give them exercises and resources and workbooks and masterclasses. And so that's why, yeah, I never need more than that. period of time for them to reach their goals. So that's the one-to-one. And then I also have a group option, which is 9 weeks. Initially, when I first launched the group, I was a bit skeptical. I was like, okay, let's see if I'm going to be able to get them the results that they want in this period of time and in a group container. But I'm receiving, actually the other day, I received some messages from former group participants who are in a beautiful relationship right now. One of the former clients, she just moved in with her new partner, which is amazing. And so, yeah, the group container is super, super powerful as well. And that's 9 weeks. And there is also an option to add, to have a VIP add-on, which will give you 3 90-minute trauma healing sessions, one-to-one. So yeah, those are the 2 frameworks I have right now. And hopefully when the world fully opens up, I would also like to start hosting retreats.
Beautiful, beautiful. And it's good to hear that there is a hope. You can fix your self-worth. You can get back on track, and you can have this beautiful relationship. And I also see that many people out there think like, oh yeah, I just don't find the right partner, or they spend a lot of time in dating, but they don't really take the time to heal themselves and work on their own relationships. And what we wanted to speak here today about a lot is also the work environment, right? Because yeah, you have also relationships, and maybe due to this relationships, the quality of your work and professional life is not as at the level that you would love and like it to be. Do you have any tips for us in this area? How to perform at work and claim your power, especially as a woman at work? How can I have fulfilled work relationships? What are some areas that you touched on there already with trauma healing?
Well, I think everything is interconnected, right? Let's say, for example, if you struggle with people pleasing or codependency in your personal relationships, you'll probably struggle with that in work as well. So it might be hard for you to say no or set boundaries. So everything's interconnected. It's just often that when we're in our intimate relationships, probably more triggers will come up. The intimate relationships tend to bring up more stuff. But if you look really deeper, you'll probably see similar patterns appearing in work as well. And so, yeah, I would say it's the same type of inner work that has to take place, or not has to, but can take place. Looking at your patterns, starting to heal inner child wounds, and then you'll see a difference in both your personal and professional relationships. And I think the key for any successful relationship is communication. Right? So be it personal or at work, if you're not voicing and communicating your needs, your desires, the way you want to do things, how, maybe you don't understand something at work, maybe you need help, maybe something is bothering you. Whatever it is, I think with healthy, open, and transparent communication, a lot of challenges and issues can be solved.
Absolutely. I think powerful or empowering communication is so important. Do you have any tips for us here? You mentioned the field of setting boundaries, and also with a background of codependency. What are the traps people fall into in their communication, especially with such a background?
So if, people listening, they have people-pleasing tendencies, well, there's a struggle or inability to say no, right? So then they'll just, something will be requested from them, and they'll just go ahead and say yes without even thinking, because that's the default, like they're on autopilot. And there's this deep-seated, deep-rooted fear of abandonment or rejection. And that's why we people please, because we want to receive love. We want to feel accepted. And so I would say a good practice is firstly to take a moment and pause before responding and tune in to how we are feeling, if we have the capacity or not to do what's requested from us. So if we're talking about work and your manager asks you, I don't know, to do something at that moment, you could take a couple of minutes to just tune in and say like, okay, do I have the capacity to do that right now? Or can I request a little bit more time? And in personal life, again, just tuning into our needs. So an exercise I often give to my clients is to put a daily reminder on their phone that pops up and says, how do I feel? What do I need? And it just forces them to take a moment, tune in. And so it could be like, oh, I'm feeling tired. I need to take a nap, or I'm hungry. I need a snack. And that process can be very, very healing, because as codependents or people pleasers, we're not used to tuning into our needs. Instead, we're more focused on other people's needs. So that's a very powerful practice. And then in terms of communication, what I think nonviolent communication is a very good way to go. So I encourage readers, viewers to look that up. And there's a book and online resources on how to communicate in a nonviolent way. And that is essentially, it's focused on expressing our feelings and using I. So if we blame someone, let's say somebody, I'm going to just take a personal relationship. Let's say, I don't know, our partner never washes the dishes and we get super, super frustrated. If we go up to him and we say, you don't care about us, you don't care about me, you never do the dishes, you never contribute at home, I feel so let down, that's a blame, right? We're attacking him. And it's probably just going to blow up into a fight, and there's not going to be some constructive let's say, result. Whereas if we approach it from a nonviolent and vulnerable way, it might look like, hey, baby, every time you don't wash the dishes and you leave the kitchen in a mess, this makes me feel a little bit frustrated and anxious, because I really love living in a clean home. And so if you were to do this, it would make me feel supported, and I feel like I need some support right now. Would you be open to be more mindful about this, and yeah, maybe cleaning up after yourself, because this would mean a lot to me.
Wow. Yeah, to be really radical honest in your communication. And I also sense while you're saying that the difference, right? Like one is really giving the partner also a role, and also giving both together something to fight for a good relationship. And the other one is kind of blaming and drowning both of them, probably, right?
Yeah.
And I think the same thing applies to work as well. And I mean, I've been also in that place. I've been one of those who always said, yes, sure, I can do that. And loading my work pile so big that I couldn't do everything perfectly. And I've been there that I tried to get better and better, but not really trying to work better with the people and dealing with the responsibilities, so that the work relationships also get stronger. I really like that you mentioned that how to communicate in a powerful way. Do you also offer something for that? Or you also mentioned some books. Do you have one particular tip for our listeners?
Yeah, like I mentioned, if they just Google nonviolent communication, there are a lot of books on that. And there's another thing called authentic relating, which I really love. So they offer online or also offline workshops around the world. I was lucky enough to attend one in Bali. And there, again, it's all about, well, authentic relating. So how can we show up in a more authentic and vulnerable way and communicate from that place? So I think that's another really good resource. And I think at the end of the day, it's all about vulnerability and tuning into the deeper reason and our deeper, let's say, needs and desires. So when you get frustrated about the dishes, is it really about the dishes, or is there something deeper? Is it your need to want to feel maybe taken care of and supported? Right? So getting clear on what the actual need is.
So powerful, this point. And especially when we're speaking here about living the life you're here for, creating the life you really want to live. How do you want to create it if you don't know what you want. So I think it's a long process sometimes to really dig deep to what do I really want. But I like how you took it even to very tiny decisions during a day to really ask yourself, hey, why is this triggering me? What do I really want to create? I love that. Oh, we're already short on time here, but I want to scratch one last thing, maybe with one question, because I know you're working especially a lot with empaths and highly sensitive people. Is being an empath a wrongness or a strongness? Is it something that that can empaths be? Yeah, how can they use their gift, let's say, in the world?
Yeah, so for the viewers that aren't familiar with the term empath, it's essentially someone who's very energetically sensitive. So empaths tend to be able to feel energy, other people's emotions. I'm personally even a physical empath, which means I can feel other people's physical pain in my body. So in my case, it's really beneficial for my sessions, right? When we're doing a trauma healing session, I can often feel where the trauma is lodged in the client's body. And when they can't feel it because they've numbed things out, I'll be like, hey, how's your chest doing? Or how's your back doing? And then suddenly there's more awareness brought to that area. So I think from turning it from a weakness into a superpower, it has to do with having the awareness, firstly, of, what does it really mean? And how can I use it to my benefit, right? So if you're in a crowded place and you're just absorbing everybody's anxiety and energy, well, that's going to be depleting. But if you're aware that you're doing it, then you can choose not to. Right? Then you can be like, I'm actually not going to be merging with everyone in this room. I'm going to stay in my energy and grounded in my power. And yeah, I mean, there's a lot of reasons why we tend to do this as empaths. It's because we were taught that this is how we connect. In order to connect with someone, we have to merge with them. This came from childhood as well. So yeah, I think that the key to moving into from, let's say, an unawakened empath to an empowered empath is to realize, yeah, why we're doing what we're doing and the abilities that we have, and then using it to our benefit, because empaths are highly intuitive as well. We can go really deep and connect on a very deep level in relationships. Like there are a lot of strengths and positive aspects to being an empath, but often there's people focus on the negatives because they feel, depleted or overwhelmed. And so like, that's one thing that I help my clients do, is take back their power, start setting boundaries, both energetically and in real life, and just, coming from this place of empowerment, as opposed to this like victim mindset that, oh, everything is happening to me.
I love that term, the empowered empath, and really using that strength as a strength and not as a weakness. And I liked also the image that you draw about like taking in all these energies, because they learned how to relate that way. And one thing I would be really interesting is, how do you teach them to stay in their energy? And is that something that requires a lot of training, again, as you said before? Is it like with the mental health? How can I really establish these energetic boundaries and stay in my own ground?
Well, I think the more you set actual boundaries, the more that translates into energetic boundaries as well. Because if you keep on saying yes to everyone and not honoring your own needs, that's going to be reflected in your auric field as well. You're just going to be super open and you're just going to be leaking energy everywhere. So the more we practice setting boundaries in real life, the stronger our energetic boundaries become. And it's also about creating a strong sense of self. So empaths, codependents, people pleasers, we don't have a very strong sense of self, meaning we often don't know what we want, what we need. There's a lack of self-worth. So the more we work on those aspects and become stronger within us, then we don't have the need to melt and merge with other people anymore. Right?
So good. That was really, really important what you said here, I think. it is so good to understand why we're doing this merging and why and how to stop this by setting these boundaries in all aspects of our life. And I think that's also where this holisticness comes into place, to really look at all the different parts of your life. Where am I losing this energy? Why am I spreading my energy in all ways? On how can I keep focused and centered? And that comes also down to the smallest things again in the end. Thank you very much for pointing out this. Do you have any last recommendations for empaths where to start on their journey?
Yeah. So just to make it clear, like a big portion of my clientele are empaths, highly sensitives, people who maybe struggle with people pleasing. But I don't only work with empaths. I've got like clients from other backgrounds as well. And I'd say a great place to start is actually my group program, Secure in Love, which is starting on February 22nd. So that's like in about 2 weeks or so. And yeah, the early bird rates are available now, and it's open for enrollment. And so if the viewers watching, if they're in a place where they want to break free from unhealthy relationship patterns, heal childhood wounds, rewire limiting beliefs, and just create the super strong sense of self, and from that place attract and create a loving and nurturing relationship, then my group program is for them. So yeah, hopefully you can include the link in the description or in the comments, and they can head over there and check out all the details. I'll also be including my Instagram, so if they have any questions or if they're not sure if the program is a good fit, they can always reach out. I'm available. And yeah, I think that would be my recommendation.
Thank you so much. And everyone who feels like drawn to Cassandra, please check out the website, please check out the programs, because I think like this relationship gateway, well, how do you say, bottleneck? I think it's a bottleneck to an empowered life, really. And I can really say from my own experience, I've been looking into so many areas of personal development, but when I looked into this, it really was the key to a healthy self-worth, to showing up differently, to understanding myself, and to break free from many things that I was looking before at the outside. So I think it's a wonderful chance. So check it out. Thank you so much for being here, Cassandra.
Thank you for having me.
And sure, I'll put the links all in the description, and yeah, let's check it out. I have 2 last questions for you. What is your vision of the world? Please complete the sentence. The world would be better if
everyone could openly give and receive love.
And the second one, freedom is?
Acceptance.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Cassandra.
You're very welcome. Thank you, Sylvia. Have a good day.